in general, how do you feel about the condition of the team?
I mean, I feel like they're ready for practice. Obviously, we're a long ways away from being in game shape. But as strength and conditioning coaches, our job first and foremost is prepare these guys to practice at the level at which Coach Morris practices at. That practice in turn with additional conditioning here and there will get them ready for the game. So I feel good about them being in practice shape, but we still have a ways to go before they're in game shape.
Did you enter the summer with certain objectives? I mean, kind of like the game plan for what you wanted to do. Can you talk about that?
Well, it's not really my objectives. We do a great job as a staff, of sitting down with not only Coach Morris, but Coach Chavis and Coach Craddock. They do a post-spring evaluation. That's really our blueprint of what we're trying to accomplish over the summer. We sat down with each side of the ball and went through each player individually and what their individual goals would be for the upcoming season. We talk about beginning with the end in mind. So we wanted to know where we were at that time, where we wanted these guys to be by fall camp, and then we reverse engineered our way, to get there best we can.
What are some of the players that have stuck out in the off-season workouts?
As far as?
Progressing from where they were in spring till now?
I mean, you can go down the list at each position and, highlight guys, changes, whether it be gaining weight, losing weight, transforming fat into muscle, but I guess I would have to say the biggest gainers throughout this offseason process would have to be, first of all, Dalton Wagner. When we met him in January, he was 275 pounds. He's walking around today at 302. It's feeling good, looking good, and he's got more confidence than anybody in this room. Jonathan Nance was a guy we met in January, weighed in at 166. Now he's at 190 pounds, and he's faster than ever. He's throughout gaining. We never want to put weight on the player if it's going to make him lose a step. The weight that they gain is going to be more force that they apply to the ground that's going to make them a lot faster, a lot more explosive, and able to make big plays come Saturday this fall. And then another guy I have to highlight that was a big gainer was Cameron Curl. He weighed in at 187 in January. Now he's walking around at 201. He's another guy that gained a lot of weight, put on a lot of muscle, and he's moving around a lot better than he did back in January. As far as the biggest losers throughout the process, obviously two guys to really highlight. First of all, Johnny Gibson Jr. He's a guy that weighed in January at 345. He weighed as much as 348 at times. He's walking around today at 319, and he's looking lean and mean, and he's able to move a lot better, able to bend, and able to his conditioning level has raised tremendously from when we saw him in January. And another guy is Jalen Merrick. He started weighing in at 345 also, and now he's walking around today at 316. So a guy that's lost 29 pounds and moving a lot better, feeling a lot better, and those guys are able to sustain, adequate conditioning to run Coach Morris' style of offense, which is, I guess, my job. So.
Seemed like the last year's team had an inordinate amount of foot injuries. Did that get researched, and if you all trying to look at things maybe to correct some of the problems they have with so many injured, foot injuries, broken feet last year?
Okay, yeah, we kind of looked into that. Foot injuries can happen because of a number of different reasons. So not necessarily understanding what they did from a training standpoint, but just know that that's something that has been an issue in the past. So we have implemented things within our off-season training program to where our cool down is what we call a barefoot cool down, to where the guys will do a series of movements where at the end of the workout we take their shoes off and make them do a series of movements barefoot. As well as that within the workout, we do, I guess, what we call barefoot injury prevention exercises. So on unstable surfaces, whether it be an Rx pad or a Bosu ball, making those tiny, small intrinsic muscles do what we call propriocept. So if you think about a shoe has a nice hard sole on it, so it inhibits your foot's natural ability to propriocept. So by removing that shoe, removing that stable surface, putting you on something unstable, we're training those tiny small muscles. So is it going to fix the problem? I can't stand up here and say that, but we are being proactive in how we approach it.
Tru, how do you think the O-linemen have done overall in the conditioning program, given you're trying to get where these guys have a wider stance based on what they're going to do in Coach Morris's offense?
I think that they've bought in. They've truly committed, and I mean, honestly, that group, led by Yelda Froholt, who's a phenomenal leader, one of the best leaders I've had the opportunity to work with. You know, he brings it every single day. You know, he demands so much from that group, just so it makes our job easy as coaches. You know, so when you have a guy like that leading that group, you know, and really demanding their best every single day, you don't want to let that guy down. So that's really raised the bar across the board for everybody in that offensive line room. And you know, yeah, it was difficult for them to adjust to in the beginning, but they've slowly but surely made progress. You know, we had our conditioning test the last week of the summer, and all of those guys made it. You know, when they made it, we all celebrated just like we won a national championship, just because those guys invested, you know, changed their bodies, changed their mindsets, and truly committed to our standard, which is best, in order to be where they are today.
What would all that conditioning test cover? Like, was it a mile run or sprints, or what was it?
It was what we call a 300-yard shuttle. It was three 300-yard shuttles back to back to back, you know, and I mean, for someone who's never run one, it's extremely difficult. And even for a 300-pounder, it's still extremely difficult. But the thing is, like, we knew that going into it. You know, they hadn't ran it all summer, but, you know, that was our test at the end. So for those guys to encounter something that was brand new to them, you know, putting your best effort forward, you know, they were all able to overcome it. So.
Have either of the quarterbacks taken ownership of the team, stepped up their leadership this offseason?
Give me an example of what you mean either or.
Just leading everybody.
Well, I mean, those guys, they do a great job of leading in their own ways. I can't identify just one guy who's stepped up and taken ownership, just because, I mean, they all have, at different points of the summer, have had to take the reins and you know, and have had to get each side of the ball, you know, I guess on the right track. But for one guy to say he separated himself, no, I can't do that. And plus, that's not my job.
True, if I remember in spring, coaches wanted Cole to lose a little bit of weight. Where does he stand going into camp?
As of right now, he weighs 258 pounds, you know, but really with Cole Kelly's training throughout the summer, our focus was his core, you know, his core strength. You know, being such a tall, long guy, you know, we really want to emphasize, you know, his core strength, because anything that you try to build on top of anything that doesn't have a strong core, it won't sustain. You know, I gave the analogy of, you know, having a strong upper body and a strong lower body with a weak core is like having two pieces of stainless steel connected with aluminum foil. So you want to be your strongest in the middle, and so that's really been our biggest focus with Cole, and not just really just addressing his weight and being the weight police and saying, hey, I need you to weigh this much today. Because if you train at the standard which is best every single day, and you bring it every day, then the weight will take care of itself.
You know, Michael Petway's kind of a physically impressive guy.
Mm-hmm.
Has he stood up to you a little bit, work out?
Absolutely. Michael Petway, he actually dropped, let's see here. Petway, he actually went from 224 to 219. His body fat, however, went from 11.3% down to 7%. So a guy that really transformed his body, you know, and already a good-looking guy to start off with. So the training that they did here before, you know, I'm not here to stand up and say that we built any of these players. They had a great program before. Those coaches did an outstanding job of developing these guys. So all we did was simply come in and introduce a new training style and try to enhance what was already built. You know, so for him to transform within the 7-month period and drop 4% body fat and keep his weight the same is really a credit to his work ethic and what he invested over the offseason.
What was the focus and transformation from the running backs?
Okay, give me an example.
Well, just like Devois drop weights,
Mm-hmm.
just how you guys handled those guys in training.
I mean, with Devois, our focus really wasn't for him to drop weight. You know, our focus was really for him to transform. And he's another guy that saw big gains, you know, going from 15.5% body fat down to 11%. You know, that's another outstanding job and a really a tribute to his work ethic. But he is a guy that stepped up and, you know, and became more of a leader by example throughout this process. And he's an extra guy, staying after extra to do extra core work, extra footwork drills, extra whatever it is to be able to, when he takes the field this fall, that you're going to see the best version of Devois Whaley. You know, so he's now at 209, so about 6 pounds difference from what he was in January, but he moves completely different from what he did in January also.
How's Jared Cornelius responded from his injury?
Mhm.
rehab and everything?
He's coming along very well. I'm very impressed with Jared Cornelius because of the simple fact we weren't able to train him when we first arrived on campus because he was still within the rehab protocols with athletic trainers. So we went through spring ball and were able to train him once spring ball ended. Because that's when he fully got released. So you're talking about a guy who's made his gains essentially from May up until today. But he's a guy that, coming off of the Achilles surgery, now he's cleaning 300 pounds, now he's squatting close to 400 pounds, so, and he's moving very well. And his vertical jump went up, I want to say about 3 or 4 inches, I want to say.
Is he cleared full go then for full contact?
That's an athletic trainer question, but if you ask me what he looks like within training, man, he looks really good to me. So.
On the same track, Coylin Jackson, can you update us on how he's coming along?
He's another guy that we didn't get a chance to work with during the winter conditioning program. So we really got him post spring ball, and he's made some gains also. And really getting him to just I guess trust the stability and everything. That's one I guess hurdle. Obviously, he has to overcome, but he's trained every day at a high level. Let us know when something's bothering him to where we can make modifications, but those are very few. But he's a guy that brings it every day. So.
What about the freshmen? I imagine it's a shot jumping into a college weight program for them. How have they adjusted and progressed?
Surprisingly well. This is a group of mature young men. I would, obviously highlight, guys like Silas Robinson. He's emerged as the leader of that group whenever they're in orientation, freshman orientation, and they may be running a few minutes behind to a lift. He'll be the guy to, hey, coach, they still have us over here at orientation. Is it okay if we're a few minutes behind? And, just that level of maturity. Obviously being a coach's kid, he understands the game, and, his transition has been a smooth one. But also guys that have been here since January, and Isaiah Nichols and Bumper Poole, those guys have seen significant gains within the program, and hadn't showed up on any list. And for those guys to essentially be seniors in high school and let alone learning everything their freshman year in college, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between those guys and guys that have been there for 2 or 3 years.
You pointed out a couple of guys on the body fat drop.
Mhm.
Are there any other examples of that? Because you kind of went through the weight guys, but what about body fat guys?
Oh yeah, I would say the biggest changes, obviously outside of LaMichael and Devois, the biggest change that we had was Brian Wallace. Brian Wallace is a guy who weighed 323 pounds in January, and he weighs 320 pounds today. But he dropped 5% body fat, so he essentially lost 16 pounds of fat and put on 15 pounds of muscle. 14 pounds of muscle. Sorry about that, but. His body, if you look at him, the before and after pictures of him, he looks completely different. So, does that answer your question?
His body fat went from what to what?
25.5 to 20.3.
It's like you got a lot of numbers there in front of you. Could you go over some of the offensive linemen, like weight drop or weight gain and body fat?
Well, a lot of those guys are essentially close to where they were. Obviously, Kirby Adcock put on a few pounds. He dropped down to 260 in April. He came off a sickness or whatever, and so we got him back up to 280 pounds. With Todd Clary, he's now up to 288. He'll be 290 by the time we report on Thursday. Shane Clennon's up to 302. He's put together a solid summer. If I had to pinpoint one guy who's really made gains across the board in that O-line group, Shane Clennon would be at the top of that list. Yelda Froholt, he's a guy that was a complete. If you had to tell me to describe you an SEC offensive lineman, it'd be Yelda Froholt. So a guy that when we came in was already pretty well developed at 315 pounds and 23.3% body fat. Now he's 310. And walking around at 21% body fat. So a guy that's already reached pretty close to where he'll be at his peak. Make that significant of a gain is really impressive and speaks to what he's done over the course of the offseason. Like we already talked about Johnny, Tyler Hall's at 295, Dylan Hayes is at 294, Audrey Horn is at 290, the Deion Malone is at 293, and Silas Robinson is at 304, down from 321 when he arrived in June or May. And then Dalton Wagner, like I said, is up to 302, and Brian Wallace is still 320.
How about Colton Jackson? I don't think you mentioned him.
Yeah, he's still right around 300. So he's fluctuates between 300 and about 302. So
Is his body fat changed significantly?
it's close to the same. You know, he wasn't an overly fat guy to begin with, so he's right there at that close to 20% mark.
What about speed gains? Do you guys track that?
We do. We don't run 40s. We run 40s in the winter. I don't feel comfortable running in the summer just because you run the risk of pulling a hamstring injury. And the last thing I want to tell Coach Morris is that a guy's out for 6 weeks because I wanted to see how much he gained in the 40-yard dash. But we do measure speed. Obviously, we have the Catapult GPS system, you know, so we track our speed in miles per hour. You know, it's not it eliminates the error of human error with the hand time and the stopwatch because we have a satellite up in space that tell us how fast you're running.
Who are the fastest guys in the winter?
I don't know if I can give out that information. It might help other teams game plan for us.
Can you say what you don't have to name, but like what was the top end speed?
We got some guys that can move right around 22 miles an hour, which is very impressive considering that you do that when you're in full pads. So.
Any more questions for Tru?
I know one thing, the coaches after the spring game talked about, the guys weren't playing as fast a pace as they wanted them to.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel good that these guys are ready to play at the pace the coaches want?
Well, I think that all comes down to, you know, how much they're able to grasp of the scheme and of the I guess the offense. And, you know, like, I don't know, so are they physically prepared to run the offense that Coach Morris and Coach Craddock implements? Absolutely. But how fast they grasp that and how quickly they can line up and get it done is another thing. So,
If you're grading the summer based on goals and expectations and what was met, what kind of grade would you give this summer?
I'll give it multiple grades just because from an effort standpoint, I give it an A. You know, just because the guys, they didn't hold back. You know, we went through those hurdles and obstacles during winter conditioning where they were learning how to work. You know, so for them to take that, and what I boil it down to and what I rank it as, okay, say in the winter, they were in what's called survival mode. Our goal was to, you know, make it through this workout to be able to make it to the next one. You know, then after that they graduate into, okay, let's get better mode, you know, and you know, so they're embracing the process, embracing the grind, and you know, for them to do that day in and day out, you know, it really showed as the summer progressed. Whereas we would have one good day and one not so good day, you know, then it eventually became we put a couple of good days together, then we put a solid week together, and after that we finished the summer putting a couple of solid great weeks in a row together, and that's why I give it an A. Is because, I mean, it's not where you start, essentially it's where you finish. So.
Thanks, Tru.
All right, thank y'all.